Hello and welcome to study session 9 of Daily Memory Lab. In today's study session, we will revise page number 20 to 26 of e-way bill chapter round 3, and once we complete that, we will go to supply under GST. We will read page number 17 to 22 round 2 revision, and then we will read round 1 of page number 23 till probably page number 28 or page number 30 depending on the time availability. Okay, before we begin our session, let us set up the pre-study session intention. Now I am going to study for 30 to 60 minutes with full focus. In this study session, I lower down all my expectations and embrace imperfection. I may or may not get big breakthroughs in this study session, and I am totally okay with it. I will most likely make mistakes in the next 30 to 60 minutes, and if I make them, I am not going to judge myself. I embrace my mistakes and reset my ambitions. My goal is not to achieve perfection. My goal is only to make a tiny bit of progress in the next 30 to 60 minutes. With that intention set, let us begin with e-way bill. Okay, we had read till here, end of this page. Now let us begin from here. Subtopic 13. Situation where e-way bill is not required to be generated. Notwithstanding anything explained above, no e-way bill is required to be generated in the following cases, where the e-way bill being transported are the ones given below. Liquefied petroleum gas for supply to household and non-domestic exempt category customers, kerosene oil sold under PDS, postal baggage transported by Department of Posts, natural or cultured pearls and precious or semi-precious stones, precious metals and metal clad with precious metal, chapter 71, jewelry, goldsmiths and silversmiths wares and other articles, chapter 71, excepting imitation jewelry, 7117. Currency, used personal and household effects, coral, unworked and worked coral, 96010508. Okay, where the goods are being transported by a non-motorized conveyance, no need of e-way bill. Where the goods are being transported from the customs port, airport, air cargo complex and land customs station to an inland container depot or a container freight station for clearance by customs, no e-way bill. In respect of movement of goods within such areas as are notified under Rule 138.14d of the state or union territory rules in that particular state or union territory, no e-way bill. Where the goods other than de-oiled cake being transported are exempt from tax, no e-way bill. Where the goods being transported are alcoholic liquor for human consumption, petroleum crude, high-speed diesel, motor spirit commonly known as petrol, natural gas or aviation turbine fuel, no e-way bill. Where the supply of goods being transported is treated as no supply under Schedule 3 of the CGST Act. So here supply of goods being treated as no supply is also covered under here, and goods that are exempt from tax is also given here, no need of e-way bill. Where the goods are being transported under customs bond from an inland container depot or a container freight station to a customs port, airport, air cargo complex and a land customs station, from one customs station or custom port to another customs station or customs port, are under customs supervision or under customs seal. If goods are being transported under customs supervision, no need of e-way bill. Goods are transported under customs seal, no need of e-way bill. Where the goods being transported are transit cargo from or to Nepal or Bhutan. Okay. Where the goods being transported are exempt from tax under notification number 7, supply of goods by the CSD to the unit run canteens or to the authorized customers, and the supply of goods by the unit run canteens to the authorized customers, and notification number 26 2017, 21/9/2017, supply of heavy water and nuclear fuels by Department of Atomic Energy to Nuclear Power Corporation of India Limited. Okay. Next, any movement of goods caused by defense formation under Ministry of Defense as a consignor or consignee, where the consignor of goods is the central government of any state or a local authority for transport of goods by rail, where empty cargo containers are being transported, where the goods are being transported up to a distance of 20 km from the place of business of the consignor to a weigh bridge for weighment purposes, and from the weigh bridge back to the place of business of the said consignor, subject to the condition that the movement of goods is accompanied by a delivery challan issued in accordance with rule number 55, where empty cylinders for packing of liquefied petroleum gas are being moved for reasons other than supply. So we have completed subtopic number 13. In all these situations, we don't need to generate e-way bill. Okay. Now let's go to subtopic number 14. Documents and devices to be carried by a person in charge of a conveyance. Rule 138A. The person in charge of a conveyance shall carry the invoice or bill of challan, the invoice or bill of supply or delivery challan as the case may be, and a copy of the e-way bill in physical form or the e-way bill number in electronic form or mapped to a RFID embedded onto the conveyance, except in case of movement of goods by rail or by air or vessel in such a manner as may be notified by the commissioner. Carrying e-way bill number in respect of electronic form implies that person in charge of conveyance can merely code the e-way bill number to the proper tax officer. Tax officer will do all the requisite verifications based on the number. RFIDs are radio frequency identification device used for identification. Invoice reference number instead of tax invoice. In case e-invoice is issued, the quick response code having an embedded invoice number in it may be produced electronically for verification by the proper officer instead of the physical copy of such tax invoice. In such a case, the registered person will not have to upload the information in part A of e-way bill for generation of e-way bill, and the same shall be auto-populated by the common portal on the basis of information furnished in the prescribed form relating to e-invoice. Okay. The commissioner by notification require a class of transporters to obtain a unique RFID and get the said device embedded onto the conveyance and map the e-way bill to the RFID prior to the movement of goods. Okay. Documents instead of e-way bill. Where circumstances so warrant, the commissioner may by notification require the person in charge of the conveyance to carry the following documents instead of the e-way bill: tax invoice or bill of supply or bill of entry or a delivery challan where the goods are transported for reasons other than by way of supply. So the primary document, the person in charge of conveyance shall carry the invoice or bill of supply, delivery challan, and then a copy of e-way bill in physical form or the e-way bill in electronic form or e-way bill mapped to an RFID. Okay. Verification documents and verification of documents and conveyances. 138B. The commissioner or an officer empowered by him in this behalf may authorize the proper officer to intercept any conveyance to verify the e-way bill in physical or electronic form for all interstate and intrastate movement of goods. The commissioner shall get RFID readers installed at places where the verification of movement of goods is required to be carried out, and verification of movement of vehicles shall be done through such device readers where the e-way bill has been mapped with the said device. The physical verification of conveyances shall be carried out by the proper officer as authorized by the commissioner or an officer empowered by him in this behalf. However, on receipt of specific information on evasion of tax, physical verification of a specific conveyance can also be carried out by any other officer after obtaining necessary approval of the commissioner or an officer authorized by him in this behalf. Okay, let's go to 16th subdivision. inspection and verification of goods. So the previous one was verification of documents and conveyances. Here it is inspection and verification of the goods that are being carried. Rule 138C. A summary report of every inspection of goods in transit shall be recorded online by the proper officer in Part A of a prescribed form within 24 hours of inspection. Every inspection of goods in transit shall be recorded and issued within 24 hours of online inspection, and final report in Part B of said form shall be recorded within 3 days of such inspection. Okay, so whenever an officer carries out inspection of goods in a conveyance, within 24 hours of such inspection, Part A will be, the report will be recorded in Part A and it will be, I think, available online. And Part B of the final report, which will be in Part B, will be recorded and available for online within 3 days of such inspection. However, where the circumstances so warrant, the Commissioner or any other officer authorized by him may, on sufficient cause being shown, extend the time for recording the final report of the said form for a further period not exceeding 3 days. So it will be like 3 days plus 3 days. So 6 days also it can go. The period of 24 hours, or as the case may be 3 days, shall be counted from the midnight of the date on which vehicle was intercepted. Okay. So let's say a commissioner, let's say an officer intercept a vehicle today, and the inspection has been carried out now. So let's say it is 1:10 p.m. Now the verification has been done right now. So the validity will count from the midnight of today. So the validity will not begin until like 11:59 p.m. today. So when 11:59 p.m. is over, it will be like 0000, the first minute of tomorrow. From that time the validity will start. So within the 24 hours of tomorrow, the Part A will have to be issued, and 3 days. So Sunday, Monday and Tuesday, 3 days. Here they have not mentioned about exclusion of Sundays or inclusion of Sundays. So in such situation, within 3 days, they have not also said 3 working days or anything like that. So just 3 days. So that means by Tuesday, before the midnight of Tuesday, the report should have been issued. And let's say that there is some delay, that means another 3 days it will be pushed. So Wednesday, Thursday, Friday, before midnight of Friday, the final report should be issued. Okay, next, where the physical verification of goods being transported on any conveyance has been done during transit at one place within the state or in any other state, no further verification of the said conveyance shall be carried out again in the state or union territory unless a specific information relating to evasion of taxes made available subsequently. So only one inspection per state. Okay, 17th point, facility for uploading information regarding detention of vehicle. Where a vehicle has been intercepted and detained for a period exceeding 30 minutes, transporter may upload the said information in specified form on the common portal. Okay, 18th point, blocking of e-way bill generation facility 138E. Blocking of e-way bill facility means disabling generation facility means disabling a taxpayer from generating the e-way bill. Blocking of GSTIN for e-way bill generation would only be for the defaulting supplier GSTIN and not for defaulting recipient or transporter GSTIN. Suspended GSTIN cannot generate e-way bill as a supplier. However, the suspended GSTIN can get the e-way bill generated as recipient or as transporter. As per Rule 138E, no person, including a consign or consignee, transporter, an e-commerce operator or courier agency, shall be allowed to furnish information in Part A of Form GST EWB 1 in respect of any outward movement of goods of a registered person who, being a person paying tax under composition scheme, has not furnished the statement for payment of self-assessed tax for 2 consecutive quarters, or being a person paying tax under regular scheme has not furnished the returns for a consecutive period of 2 tax periods. Being a person paying tax under regular scheme has not furnished GSTIR for any 2 months or quarters as the case may be, being a person whose registration has been suspended under provisions of Rule 21A of CGST rules. So here, these are all the disqualifications that will make a person to prohibit that person from furnishing their information in Part A of Form GST EWB1 in respect of any outward movement of goods. So they can't furnish such report, fill such information and furnish Part A of Form GST EWB1 as supplier. However, Commissioner may, on receipt of an application from a registered person in prescribed form, on sufficient cause being shown and for reasons to be recorded in writing by order in prescribed form, allow furnishing of the said information in Part A of Form GST EWB1 subject to prescribed conditions and restrictions. An order rejecting said request shall not be passed without giving the said person a reasonable opportunity of being heard. The permission granted or rejected by the Commissioner of State Tax or Commissioner of Union Territory Tax shall be deemed to be granted or, as the case may be, rejected by the Commissioner. Okay. Point number 19. It may be noted that the expressions transported by railways, transportation of goods by railways, transportation of goods by rail, and movement of goods by rail used in the provisions discussed above does not include cases where leasing of parcel space by railways takes place. Okay, Mr. A registered person paying tax under regular scheme in Delhi, has not filed GSTR 1 for the last 2 months. Mr. B, Haryana, a regular return filer, wants to generate an e-way bill for goods to be supplied to Mr. A. Here, there will be no restriction in generating e-way bill for Mr. B, who is making outward movement of goods, as he is a regular return filer. Mr. A wants to generate an e-way bill in respect of an outward supply of goods to Mr. H. E-way bill generation is blocked in this case, as it's an outward supply of movement of goods of Mr. A, who has not filed GSTR 1 for the past 2 months. Tax invoice or bill of supply to accompany transport of goods. Rule 55A. Person in charge of the conveyance shall carry a copy of the tax invoice or bill of supply issued in accordance with provisions of Rule 46, 46A, 49 in a case where such person is not required to carry an e-way bill under these rules. So even if a person gets exempted from carrying an e-way bill, generating and carrying an e-way bill, they still have to carry the copy of either a tax invoice or bill of supply, which is issued accordingly under 46, 46A and 49. Okay, so we have completed the first leg of today's preparation. Actually, we have also completed 3 rounds of e-way bill chapter. Much more clarity we have than how we were when we read in round number 1. So with that said, let me go to supply under GST, page number 17 to page number 22. We will read that portion first. That will be round 2 of whatever we read yesterday. Then we will go to the new portions that we are supposed to read today. Okay, so let's begin round 2 of supply under GST of whatever we studied yesterday. License, lease, rental and disposal. The dictionary meaning of the term license is a permission granted by competent authority to engage in a business or occupation or in an activity otherwise unlawful. The dictionary meaning of rental is an agreement to rent something or the amount of money that you pay to rent something, and that of lease is to make a legal agreement by which money is paid and in order to use land, a building, a vehicle or a piece of equipment for an agreed period of time. Black's Law Dictionary defines disposal as the sale, pledge, giving away, use, consumption or any other disposition of a thing. Under GST, such licenses, leases, and rental of goods with or without transfer of right to use are covered under the supply of service because there is no transfer of title in such supplies. Transactions are specifically treated as supply of service in Schedule 2 of CGST Act. As discussed earlier, one of the parameters to qualify as supply of goods and or services is that a supply is made for a consideration. This parameter has been explained in the following paragraphs. Okay, consideration. The dictionary meaning of the word consideration is payment. Consideration need not always be in the form of money. It can be in money or in kind. It covers anything which might be possibly done, given, or made in exchange for something else. Further, a consideration need not always flow from the recipient of the supply. It can also be made by a third person. However, any subsidy given by central government, a state government, is not considered as consideration. A deposit given in respect of the supply of goods or services or both shall not be considered as payment made for such supply unless the supplier applies such deposit as consideration for the said supply. The term consideration is defined under section 2 clause 31. Okay, the definition has been depicted in the form of a diagram as follows. Payment in money or otherwise for supply, deposit to be considered as payment only when the supplier applies such deposit as consideration for the said supply. Payment in money or otherwise for the supply by the recipient or any other person, excluding subsidy given by central or state governments. Monetary value of any act or forbearance for the act by the recipient or any other person. Payment or monetary value, whatever it is, basically admit it as consideration, but deposits are not consideration unless the supplier applies it as consideration, and money given by central government or state government in the form of subsidy is not considered to be consideration. Let us examine the existence of consideration in the following three scenarios. Donations received by charitable institutions from individual donors without quid pro quo. Donations, an important feature of consideration is quid pro quo, something for something. Donations received by the charitable organizations are treated as consideration only if there exists quid pro quo, that is, there is an obligation on the part of recipient of the donation or gift to do anything, supply a service. Generally, institutions such as religious institutions, charitable organizations, schools, hospitals, orphanages, old age homes, etc., receive financial help or any other support in the form of donation or gift from the individual donors. In order to express the gratitude towards such help or support, the recipient institution places a name plate or similar such acknowledgement in their premises. When the name of the donor is displayed in recipient's institution's premises in such a manner which can be said to be an expression of gratitude and public recognition of donor's act of philanthropy and is not aimed at giving publicity to the donor in such manner that it would be an advertising or promotion of his business, then it can be said that there is no supply of service for payment in the form of donation. In other words, there is no obligation on the part of recipient of the donation to do anything in return. Okay. Therefore, there is no GST liability on such payment made. Bhushan donated a blackboard to Yoganist Sansthan, a charitable yoga institution. Yoganist Sansthan printed underneath the blackboard so donated, good wishes from Mr. Bhushan. Srimati Durga Devi donated some money to a temple in the memory of her late father. The temple trust constructed a room in the temple complex from such donation and wrote donated by Srimati Durga Devi in the memory of her father on the door of the room. In the above examples, it may be noticed that there is no reference or mention of any business activity of the donor which otherwise would have got advertised. Thus, GST is not leviable where all the following three conditions are satisfied. gift or donation is made to a charitable organization. Payment has the character of gift or donation. The purpose is philanthropic and there is no element of advertisement. Okay. Next, artworks sent by art to galleries for exhibition is not a supply, as no consideration flows from the gallery to the artists. Artists give their work of art to galleries where it is exhibited for supply. However, no consideration flows from the gallery to the artist where the artwork are sent to the gallery for exhibition, and therefore the same is not a supply. It is only when a buyer selects a particular work displayed at the gallery that the actual supply takes place, and applicable GST would be payable at the time of such supply. Circular number 22/22 of 2017. No supply of service by the insured to the insurance company instead of, okay, in respect of no claim bonus offered by said insurance company to him. The issue which arose for consideration was whether the deduction on account of no claim bonus allowed by the insurance company from the insurance premium payable by the insured can be considered as consideration for the supply provided by the insured to the insurance company for agreeing to the obligation to refrain from the act of lodging insurance claim during the previous year or years. As per practice prevailing in the insurance sector, the insurance companies deduct no claim bonus from the gross insurance premium amount when no claim is made by the insured person during the previous insurance period. The customer or insured procures insurance policy to indemnify himself from any loss or injury as per the terms of the policy and is not under any contractual obligation not to claim insurance during any period covered under the policy in respect of no claim bonus. It is therefore clarified that there is no supply provided by the insured to the insurance company in form of agreeing to the obligation to refrain from the act of lodging insurance claim during the previous years, and no claim bonus cannot be considered as a consideration for any supply provided by the insured to the insurance company. Okay, so for no claim bonus it is not considered as consideration. Okay, another parameter to qualify as supply, it is in course or furtherance of business. GST is essentially a tax only on commercial transactions. Hence, only those supplies that are in the course or furtherance of business qualify as supply under GST. Okay, resultantly, any supplies made by an individual in his personal capacity do not come under the ambit of GST unless they fall within the definition of business. Meaning of supply made in the course or furtherance of business. Any activity undertaken in the course or for furtherance of business would constitute a supply. In order to understand the term in the course or furtherance of business, we need to first understand the term business. Business as defined under section 2 clause 17 inter alia includes any trade, commerce, manufacture, profession, vocation, etc., whether or not undertaken for a monetary benefit. The definition of business has been summarized in the diagram below. Okay, any trade, manufacture, profession, even if there is no pecuniary benefit, any activity incidental to it, any activity of same nature, even if there is no volume or continuity. Supply or acquisition of goods, including capital goods or service, in connection with commencement or closure of business. Provision of facilities by club, association, etc. to its members for consideration. Admission for consideration to any premises. Services as holder of office accepted in the course or furtherance of a trade or profession. Activities of a race club, including by way of totalizator or a license to bookmaker, or activities of a licensed bookmaker in such club. Any activity by government or local authority as public authorities. Thus, business includes any activity or transaction which is incidental or ancillary to any trade, commerce, manufacture, profession, vocation, adventure, wage, bet, or any other similar activity. In addition, any activity undertaken by central government or a state government or any local authority in which they are engaged as public authority shall also be construed as business. For any trade, commerce, or any other similar activity to qualify as business, frequency, volume, continuity, or regularity of such a transaction or obtaining pecuniary benefit from it is not a prerequisite. Some of the examples. So I think we studied till here yesterday. So from now, whatever that I'm studying will be the round one of today's quota. Supply made or not made in the course or furtherance. The examples are given here. Seventh example, Rishabh buys a car for his personal use and after a year he sells it to a car dealer. Sale of car by Rishabh to a car dealer is not a supply under CGST Act because the said supply is not made by Rishabh in the course or furtherance of business. Okay, it was a one-time event. It's a personal transaction. So it is not a business in the first place. Manikarnika sold her old gold bangles and earrings to Abhushan jewelers. Sale of old gold jewelry by an individual to a jeweler will not constitute supply as the same cannot be said to be in the course or furtherance of business of the individual. Since business includes vocation, therefore supply of goods or service as a vocation is also a supply under GST. Sundaram Acharya, a famous actor, paints some paintings and sells them. The consideration from such sale is to be donated to a charitable trust, Kind Human. The sale of paintings by the actor qualifies as supply as it is made in the course or furtherance of business. Facilities provided by the club or association to its members for consideration are provided in the course or furtherance of business. A resident welfare association provides the service of depositing the electricity bills of residents regarding some in lieu of some nominal charges. They always use this in lieu of in a very, very wrong context. It's totally confusing to read. I think it has to be they mean to say along with some nominal charges. Provisions of service by such a club or association or society to its members is included in the definition of business. Along with, I think it has to come here. Now let me read this. A resident welfare association provides the service of depositing the electricity bills of the residents for some nominal charges or along with some nominal charges. They are paying your electricity bill, for that they are charging some nominal charges. So that will be considered as business only. Admission of persons to any premises for a consideration is also included in business. Services by way of admission to circus, cinema halls, amusement park, including theme park, water parks are considered as supply as these are services by way of admission of persons to any premises for a consideration. Okay. Business includes activities of a race club, including by way of a totalizator or a licensed bookmaker or activities of a licensed bookmaker in such club. Royal Turf Race Club is engaged in facilitating the wagering transactions on horses placed through totalizator. So what is a totalizator? Totalizator is a device showing the number and amount of bets staked on a race to facilitate the division of the total among those backing the winner. Okay. For providing the service of facilitating wagering transactions, Royal Turf Race Club gets commission which is deducted and retained by the club from the total bet value. Said services amount to supply as thus activities of a race club are included in business. There is one exception to this course or furtherance of business rule, which is import of service for a consideration. For the above discussion, it can be inferred that if an activity or transaction satisfies all the above parameters as discussed in points ABC above, the said activity or transaction qualifies as supply under GST. In the subsequent paragraphs, we have discussed the exceptions to the two parameters of supply, namely supply made for consideration but not in the course or furtherance of business and supply made without consideration. Importation of services for consideration, whether or not in the course or furtherance of business. The connotation supply gets expanded significantly through the second part of the section 7 subsection 1 clause B, which brings within the ambit of supply the importation of services for a consideration, whether or not in the course of or furtherance of business. This is the only exception to the condition of supply being made in course or furtherance of business. Ramaya, a proprietor, has received the architect services for his personal residence from an architect located in New York at an agreed consideration of $5,000. Importation of services by Ramaya is supply under section 7 1 clause B, even though it is not in the course or furtherance of business. Activities without consideration which are deemed as supply. Permanent transfer or disposal of business assets where input tax credit has been availed on such assets. Okay. Supply of goods or services or both between related persons or between distinct persons as specified in section 25 when made in the course or furtherance of business between related persons or between distinct persons, provided that gifts not exceeding 50,000 rupees in value in a financial year by an employer to an employee shall not be treated as supply of goods or services or both. Supply of goods by a principal to his agent, where the agent undertakes to supply such goods on behalf of the principal, or by an agent to his principal, where the agent undertakes to receive such goods on behalf of the principal. Okay, even if there are no consideration for these transactions, they still will be deemed as supply. Import of services by a person from a related person or from any of his other establishments outside India in the course or furtherance of business. Import of services from a related person or from any of his other establishments outside India. So the previous example we saw, this is like plain importation of services. Even though it is for a consideration, it will not be considered as supply. Importation, because it is not in the course or furtherance of business. Here in this case, if you do any import of services from a related person, then it is in the course or furtherance of business. Even if it is without consideration, it has to be deemed as supply. Section analysis as seen in section 7 subsection 1 clause C, provided that supply includes the activities specified in schedule 1 made or agreed to be made without a consideration. Thus there are activities or transactions which are treated as supply even if they are not made with consideration. Even if they are made without consideration. These are specifically mentioned in Schedule 1 appended to the CGST Act. The same has been discussed in the subsequent paragraphs. In the past indirect tax regime, in every statute, consideration played the most important role for levying taxes. For instance, if any service was provided for free to a person, such service was not subject to service tax. However, under GST, the condition of consideration has been dispensed with in certain cases. This is an important departure from the earlier indirect tax regime. As per Schedule 1, in the following 4 cases, activities made without consideration will be treated as supply under Section 7. Permanent transfer or disposal of business assets. Any kind of disposal or transfer of business assets made by an entity on permanent basis, even though without consideration, qualifies as supply. However, it is important to note that this provision would apply only if input tax credit has been availed on such assets. Therefore, in order to qualify as supply under this para, following conditions need to be satisfied. There must be a disposal or transfer of business assets. Transfer or disposal must be permanent. Input tax credit must have been availed on such business assets. In view of the last condition stipulated above, permanent transfer or disposal of following business assets without consideration will not be covered with this para and thus will not be deemed as supply. Without consideration, permanent transfer or disposal of following business assets. Okay, following business assets without consideration. Business assets on which ITC is blocked or not available under GST. Business assets, though eligible for ITC, ITC has not yet been availed by the registered person. It is important to note that the term business asset has not been defined under the GST law. Okay. Dhruv gives his old laptops being used in his business to his friend free of cost. This will qualify as supply provided input tax has been availed by Dhruv on such laptops. A dealer of air conditioners permanently transfers the motor vehicle free of cost. ITC on the said motor vehicle is blocked. The transaction will not constitute as supply as the condition of availment of ITC on the business asset transferred is not fulfilled. This clause is wide enough to cover transfer of business assets from holding to subsidiary for nil consideration. Okay. Supply between related person or distinct persons, para 2 of schedule 1. So this is schedule 1. We just finished para 1. We will go to para 2. Supply of goods or services between or both between related persons or between distinct persons as defined in section 25 will qualify as supply even if made without consideration, provided it is made in the course or furtherance of business. So this is what we just read here now. They have again repeated this here. Let us understand the term related persons and distinct persons. Related persons, a person who is under influence of another person is called a related person, like members of the same family or subsidiaries of a group company. Under GST law, various categories of related persons have been specified. The term related person has been defined in explanation to section 15. The said definition has been depicted by way of a diagram. Person including legal person are deemed as related persons if such persons or officers or directors of one another's business. Such persons are legally recognized partners. Such persons are employer and employee. A third person controls, owns, holds directly or indirectly more than 25%, equal to or more than 25% voting stock or shares of both of them. One of them controls directly or indirectly the other. A third person controls directly both of them. Such persons together control a third person. Such persons are members of the same family. One of them is the sole agent or sole distributor or sole concessionaire of the other. Miss Priya holds 30% shares of ABC Limited and 35% shares of XYZ Limited. ABC Limited and XYZ Limited are related. Okay, now this is much easier to understand. Okay, Q Limited has a deciding role in corporate policy, operations management and quality control of R Limited. It can be said that Q Limited controls R Limited. Okay, Q Limited has a deciding role. So how does it get covered here? One of them controls the other. So through this clause, this example gets covered. Q Limited has the deciding role in corporate policy, operations management and quality control of R Limited. It can be said that Q Limited controls R Limited, thus Q Limited and R Limited are related. Okay. Distinct persons specified under section 25. Before we go through the statutory provisions of distinct persons, let us first have an overview of the registration provisions for better understanding of the concept of distinct persons. Detailed and in-depth analysis of the same is given in chapter 9. Okay. Under GST law, a supplier is required to obtain state-wise registration. He has to obtain registration in every state or union territory from where he makes a taxable supply, provided his aggregate turnover exceeds a specified threshold limit. Thus, he is not required to obtain registration from a state or union territory where he makes non-taxable supply. Since registration in GST is PAN based, once a supplier is liable to register, he has to obtain registration in each of the states in which he operates and makes a taxable supply under the same PAN. Further, he is normally required to obtain single registration in a state or union territory. Okay, however he has multiple where he has multiple places of business in a state or union territory, he can get a single registration for said state or union territory. He may also get separate registration for any place or places of business in such union territory. Let us understand the concept of distinct persons in simple terms. Okay, the establishments of a person with the separate registrations where whether within the same union territory or in different states are considered as different or as distinct persons. Okay, so if you have separate registration whether within the same state or in different state, you are considered as distinct persons. Where a person having one registered establishment in a state or union territory has another establishment in a different state or union territory, not necessarily registered, these establishments are considered as establishments of distinct persons. Statutory provisions relating to distinct persons are contained in subsection 4 and 5 of section 25. They have been explained with examples as follows. A person who has obtained or is required to obtain more than one registration, whether in one state or union territory or more than one state or union territory, shall, in respect of each such registration, be treated as distinct persons. Mohan, a chartered accountant, has a registered head office in Delhi. He also has obtained a registration in the state of West Bengal in respect of his newly opened branch office. Mohan's registrations under GST under same PAN in West Bengal and Delhi shall be treated as distinct persons. Further, where a person who has obtained or is required to obtain registration in a state or union territory in respect of an establishment has an establishment in another state or union territory, then such establishments shall be treated as establishments of distinct persons. 25 clause 5. So I think they have pretty much repeated almost same. It 4 and 5 looks very same. Establishment or as another establishment in state or then such establishment. Okay, this is registration based, this is establishment based. Okay, so this is what we have repeated here one more time. Okay, so we will read this. We will close today's video with example 19. Rishabh Enterprises, a registered supplier, owns an air-conditioned restaurant in Virar, Maharashtra. It has opened a liquor shop in Raipur, Uttarakhand for trading of alcoholic liquor for human consumption. Since supply of alcoholic liquor for human consumption in Uttarakhand is a non-taxable supply, Rishabh Enterprises is not required to obtain registration with respect to the same in Uttarakhand. In this case, air-conditioned restaurant in Maharashtra and a liquor shop, even though unregistered in Uttarakhand, shall be treated as establishments of distinct persons. Supply by Maharashtra restaurant to Uttarakhand shop in course or furtherance of business, even without consideration, will qualify as supply. Okay, now this is much clearer. Okay, so on that note, we have completed till page number 2.31, 2.23 to 2.31. Round 1 completed on October 2025. So on that note, let us wrap up today's segment. We will meet tomorrow. Maybe I will be able to read from page number 32 till page number 40. Hereafter, we might be increasing the daily new page count a little bit. Like previously, we were studying like 5-6 pages per day. Now, today, I think I read around 7.5 to 8 pages. So, we will maintain that for a couple of days. Then we'll slowly increase it to 9-10 pages per day. So tomorrow 2.31 till 2.39 or something like that. If pages run much faster, we will complete till 2.40. On that note, let me sign off for today. Thank you. I will see you tomorrow.